On the bio chapter, you want to know the neuron really well, autonomic nervous system, the brain structures, and then the cerebral cortex parts, and then brain imaging. So for the neurons, just remember a neuron's a cell, it sends information. Remember, axons go at, they send the message, dendrites detect, and this whole thing here is the neuron. Myelin makes it go faster, and terminal button is at the end. Remember, an action potential is the official name of a neuron firing. It's all or none. It either fires or it doesn't, and then it has to reload with a refractory period. Little tiny bit of chemistry in the neuron, just remember potato chip. Potassium on the inside, sodium on the outside, and also when it's polarized, there'll be more positive ions on the outside and negative ones on the inside, and that makes it fire. Then it fires, it reloads with a refractory period. Then for the synapse, remember neurons never touch. The synapse is the gap between the neurons. So if you go to the end of the terminal button, there's the axon there. These little tiny things are vesicles, like a vehicle for a neurotransmitter. A neurotransmitter will cross this gap here and go from the axon to the dendrite. All right, just remember, neurotransmitters are chemicals. Here they are, and they'll cross the synapse. Reuptake is after a neuron fires, it will go back to the original axon, and that process is called reuptake. Here you can see it. Neurotransmitter goes here. Reuptake, it will go back to the original neuron. And reuptake inhibitor blocks that reuptake, and that's a lot of antidepressant medications. It's a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, and it will increase your serotonin and mood. All right, I'd be aware of all the neurotransmitters: serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, and norepinephrine or norepinephrine. Serotonin, sera, mood; dopamine, like schizophrenia; and acetylcholine, Alzheimer's. All right, autonomic nervous system is fight or flight. Be really aware of the two branches. Know those really, really well. The sympathetic branch arouses you, gets you ready for fight or flight. The parasympathetic will calm you down. I would know those all really, really well. Think of the paramedic, calms you down. Parasympathetic versus sympathetic. All right, for the brain structures, we got the forebrain and the hindbrain are the main one. There's not too much emphasis on the midbrain. The hindbrain is sometimes called the brainstem, sometimes called the reptile brain. It's got these structures. And the forebrain is the mammal brain. It has these structures. All right, the way we know about the brain is from neuroimaging techniques, and fMRI is the new one. It's a functional MRI. It shows structure and activity, an fMRI. Also beware of a PET scan, positron emission topography. It measures the activity by measuring glucose burning. That's a PET scan. Okay, now back to the brain here. Let's go from the bottom up. Your basic survival brain is called the brainstem or the reptile brain, and there it is at the top of the spine. It's got the medulla. Medulla, like me, do breathing. It does basic breathing, basic survival skills, the medulla. Reticular formation is also the reticular activating system, and that's attention, memory trick, attention, formation, like in the Army, helps you pay attention. And then cerebellum, basic movement. Remember, Sarah does ballet, movement, cerebellum. Those are all something a reptile could do, so the brainstem functions. Then you go to the forebrain. They call that the mammal brain because mammals have emotion, and this has emotion and other things in it. And it's got hypothalamus, which is primarily hunger, the thalamus, which is the relay station of the brain, like the thallabus station, the thalamus. And then the limbic system has two parts, hippocampus and the amygdala. They're side by side because emotion increases memory. So you have the hippocampus and emotion. Amy is so emotional, the amygdala. Right, so these are all the forebrain here. Then the outside you want to know really well, that's the cerebral cortex. That's the most complex part of the brain. All right, the reason humans are smart is, yes, we have a big brain, but it's the amount of cerebral cortex that we have. All right, you want to know the lobes really well. Frontal lobe, pay attention, impulse control. If you sit in the front of the class, you'll pay more attention. Occipital, vision, oho, optometry, vision. That's the occipital lobe of vision. Temporal lobe, hear the tempo, hearing, temporal lobe. And the parietal lobe is organizational, it has a lot of association areas. All right, then the hemispheres left and right. Left, logic. Left, language. Right is basically everything else. So if it's math, that's logic, left. Speech, language, left. Just remember, left logic, left language. Right is spatial orientation. The left analyzes and the right puts it all together, big picture. Also, it's cross-wired. So the left side of the body is controlled by the right side of the brain, and vice versa. It's cross-wired. Okay, that's an overview real quick. We'll do part 2 later.